Hey there, welcome to LSAT Demon Daily. I'm Eric Johansson, a teacher with LSAT Demon. Joining me is Nathan Fox, co-founder of LSATdemon.com and the weekly podcast Thinking LSAT. Today we have an email from Easton.
I've been studying with the Demon for a full month and am really beginning to enjoy the LSAT. However, I'm wondering if I'm overly eager to take full practice tests and, in the process, stunting my progress or distracting from more worthwhile studying. I'm able to dedicate nearly an hour and a half to studying every day. I spend a good chunk of that time reviewing most questions from sections or drilling, as I find the explanations helpful in confirming my lines of thinking, then diving deeper on questions that are unclear to me. Usually twice a week, I will take a timed section with the clock muted. Having seen incremental improvements in accuracy, I get really focused on wanting to take my LSAT temperature via full PT. I don't know if it's the clock or what, but my question discipline, parentheses, slowing down, focusing on answer quality over quantity, having a bad section and feeling that I've spent my misses, or the bad section stealing focus from the next, end parentheses. My question discipline goes out the window. And in my 2 practice tests, I have scored under my cold diagnostic of 156. So the practice tests are a 151 and a 153. This situation frustrates me because of the diverting messages. Diverting messages?
I think maybe
PT
diverging
scores,
messages.
Yeah, diverging is what you meant there, Easton.
Yeah.
PT scores not improving versus qualitative feel of studying and drilling and sections indicating improvement. Would love to hear y'all's take. Why don't you take first crack at it?
I love how I think insightful Easton is into a lot of what's going on. Some great things going on here. First, hour and a half studying daily. That seems like some great consistency. Emphasis on review, on reviewing mistakes, but also being willing to check in on the questions that Easton got correct to just confirm. All that sounds great.
Muting the clock during timed sections.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's what you want to do. And Easton, I think, also is very aware of some of the things that is leading him to getting more wrong on time sections. Whether that's actually slowing down and taking too long on like over-analyzing incorrect answer choices, or
I think it's the other way around. He says my question discipline goes out the window. No, but I think he's describing slowing down and focusing on answer quality over quantity.
Oh, okay.
That's the question discipline that goes out of the window.
Sure.
Then the rest of that parentheses, it was a pretty bad sentence, Easton. You needed to cut that into multiple sentences. But the rest of that parentheses talks about what happens then, which is I have a bad section and I feel like I've spent all of my misses that are available for the test, which is certainly a destructive thought. It is not productive in the slightest. You can't be thinking about that on your
keeping score as you go.
Right. Keeping score as you go.
Yeah.
And the bad section stealing focus from the next. That's all what happens after the question discipline goes out the window. So he is clearly rushing. Easton, I don't think you're muting. You say you're muting the clock during your timed sections. Well, you can also mute the clock during your practice tests, and you should. Mm-hmm. So the fact that Easton isn't doing that indicates that he's definitely not approaching his full tests the way he's approaching his practice sections. So I always say, treat your official test like it's just another practice test. I want to add to that, treat your practice tests as if they are timed sections. Mm. And treat your timed sections as if they are drilling, which is something that Ben said on the Thinking LSAT podcast that we recorded today.
Yeah.
You know, it all comes back to that one sentence at a time, one question at a time. The LSAT is easy. It really is if you take your time with it. And Easton knows that from drilling and from doing calm timed sections. Now you just got to do your official tests that exact same way. If you're muting the clock during your practice sections, then you absolutely need to mute yourself. You need to mute your clock during the practice tests and on the official test. hopefully that keeps you from like doing math during the section, thinking about your pacing, wasting time thinking about how many questions remaining and how much time has elapsed, and doing math about how much time you have per remaining question in the set. Like all that
Yeah.
shit is just nothing but destructive. It's
Especially because the
not helping you
scale,
answer the question.
the keeping score and tracking how many you think you got wrong
Yeah.
as you went along is unhelpful for a couple reasons. One, it distracts you. Two, we're not always that good at keeping track of, like, we don't know which ones we got wrong or right. And three, the scale is different from test to test. So the
Yeah.
number of questions that how they translate into a certain score from test to test, it's going to be different. So yeah, once you finish a question, that question is dead to you. Just leave it behind.
Right.
Move forward.
Yeah, whether you got it right or wrong. This idea that you have a certain number of misses that you can spend is totally misguided. The amount of misses that you have is 0. You don't miss questions that you attempt. You get them right. You focus on accuracy, you read them carefully, you understand that there is one and only one right answer. There are 4 wrong answers on every single question. Now, it is true that on some of the questions, you're not going to see it right away. And that's okay. You still eliminate the terrible answers. A lot of times you'll be able to get there by process of elimination. I just can't see myself picking A or B or D or E. I've read them a couple times and I can't see how those could possibly be correct. There is a thing in C that I'm a little uncomfortable with, but I can see how if you interpreted it in a certain way, it would make sense. Okay, that's the answer.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not like counting that as a miss and then like keeping track as you go through. You're just doing counting. You're doing math that is not on the test.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a test of math, but people do math. And you're wasting processing that could be used on answering the actual questions.
Totally agree with that. The last thing that I'll say, just regarding Easton's question about wanting to take tests as a way to kind of take the temperature on where he's at, you're going to get that anyway, no matter what you do, whether it's full PTs or practice tests or drilling. The LSAT, as Nathan likes to say, will constantly tell you what you suck at, whether that's in the form of a score or you just getting one question wrong. And it's focusing on those individual questions that's the most important thing. So do you from time to time want to take time sections, maybe even full practice tests? Yes, but it's not as a way to really check in with your score. It's because you need to practice this test under timed conditions occasionally. It's not about generating a score.
The clock.
Yes, totally.
So, we do the time sections so that we can learn how to treat the questions in a time section the same way that we treat the questions in our drilling. And then maybe you do a full practice test every once in a while so that you can learn to treat your practice tests the way you treat your practice sections and your drilling, which is relentless focus on accuracy. You're just trying to turn zeros into ones. You're either going to get 0 for that question or you're going to get 1 for that question. And you need to take your time with it and just make it into a 1 and then move on to the next one. And the clock will keep track of itself. You don't need to pay attention to that. You just need to do one question, get it right, do another question, get it right. Eventually, you're going to run out of time. That's fine. You guess on the last few. That's totally fine. Until you're scoring 175 or higher, you need to be guessing on questions at the end of every section. So, like, you're underperforming now, Easton, because you're trying to do too much when the clock is ticking on those full tests. Another thing I would say, Easton, is that you can just do timed sections and then merge those sections together. There's a tool in the daemon to merge your timed sections into a 120 to 180 LSAT score. So hopefully find that. If you don't find it immediately, you could just email help@lsatdemon.com and they'll walk you through it. I think that's probably it for Easton. Anything more?
No, keep rocking it, Easton. Sounds like you're still relatively early in your studies. You're starting from a good place. You have a lot of really good awareness of what you're doing and what you should be doing. Keep it up. I predict good things for you.
Thanks, Easton. Email daily@lsatdemon.com if you'd like to ask us a question or share some LSAT or law school admissions news. Thanks for listening.